The threatening question cuts through Westfield High's cafeteria noise like a sharp knife. Bryce Kingston's menacing tone has a quality that instantly silences conversations and draws attention toward the isolated corner where someone sits hunched over books. 23 students follow in his wake like planets around a dying sun, their smartphones already emerging with the eager anticipation of spectators at a public shaming. Sloane Rivera keeps her focus on her advanced chemistry assignment despite the interruption. Her pencil hovers motionless for precisely 2 seconds above a molecular structure. The overhead fluorescent lighting illuminates the blonde wisps escaping her ponytail, and momentarily she seems more diminutive than her actual 5'6" height, appearing frailer than her delicate facial features suggest. Her loose-fitting navy sweater drapes over thin shoulders, and her curved posture over her work suggests someone attempting to disappear. However, something contradicts this vulnerable image she projects. Her pencil grip demonstrates the exact positioning of someone educated in pressure point techniques. Her bag rests at a precise 45-degree angle within easy reach on her right side, most revealing despite her downcast gaze. Her eye movements monitor every action in her peripheral, field with the methodical accuracy of a surveillance system detecting dangers. Bryce's costly sneakers create squeaking sounds on the polished surface as he moves closer, each footfall intentionally loud to announce his arrival. His varsity basketball jacket stretches over shoulders broadened by 4 years of competitive play, and his gold necklace reflects light like an alert signal. Jackson Torres follows behind, flexing his knuckles, all 6'4" of strength and swagger, while Camden Willis positions his phone camera with the concentrated attention of someone who has transformed humiliation into an artistic practice. The cafeteria's background noise diminishes to whispers. Maya Chen, positioned 3 tables distant, glances up from her meal with the haunted awareness of someone who has experienced Sloane's current position. Her hand automatically moves toward the mark on her jawline, a reminder from her own confrontation with Bryce's style of social punishment 6 months prior. Bryce's shadow falls over Sloane's notebook, obscuring the harsh institutional illumination. His declaration that she should make eye contact when responding to him carries implicit threat. Sloane's shoulders contract almost unnoticeably as she gradually lifts her head. Her green eyes lock with his with unexpected intensity that causes him to blink initially, though he rapidly masks the reaction with a rehearsed smirk. For a brief instant, something crosses her features, not terror, but evaluation. She appears to be computing distances and angles, gauging the gap between his location and the closest exit, inventorying the mass of items within arm's length. Her voice remains steady despite the slight tremor she permits at the edges when she states they haven't been formally introduced and gives her name. The audience leans closer, detecting blood in the water. Camden's live stream alert sounds softly as watchers start connecting, attracted by the promise of spectacle that Westfield High has gained notoriety for delivering. A reminder about engagement follows, mentioning that support helps illuminate stories too many choose to overlook, with gratitude expressed for bearing witness. Bryce slides into the seat opposite her without invitation, his actions deliberately intrusive. His smile contains the warmth of a predator evaluating quarry as he explains how someone in his position showing interest should elicit gratitude or excitement. Her quiet question about someone like him contains something beneath its surface that makes Jackson redistribute his weight nervously. He emphasizes her isolated status, new, alone, without allies for when situations become complicated. The sentence dangles in the air like a noose. Phones emerge like accelerated blooming flowers. The contemporary arena has demanded its tribute, and a victim must be supplied. Students who would never actively engage in cruelty become accomplices through their silence, their cameras, their appetite for content to distribute in group communications later. Sloane's fingers shift almost imperceptibly across the table surface, and those educated to identify such movements might observe she's calculating distances, the gap between her position and the table edge, the trajectory needed to direct her textbook toward Bryce's face, the mass of her water container, positioned with questionable precision near her left hand. Her careful statement that she values the introduction but should return to her schoolwork prompts a collective breath from the crowd. Within Westfield High's social hierarchy, defying Bryce Kingston ranks between academic destruction and social obliteration. Males who've opposed him have sustained mysterious injuries during athletic practice. Females who've rejected him have had their private photographs mysteriously distributed across digital platforms. Bryce's expression transforms as the charming facade slides away, exposing something considerably colder beneath. His declaration that she's mistaken emphasizes that she lacks the authority to dismiss him. Nobody possesses that privilege. Jackson positions himself to obstruct the path behind Sloane's chair, his massive frame casting an even larger shadow. Camden adjusts his phone perspective to capture her face more distinctly, the red recording indicator blinking like a miniature eye. His stream's viewer total climbs continuously. 47, 51, 63 individuals now observing the performance. Sloane whispers, Protocol 7, so softly that only Bryce detects it. He halts mid-gesture, authentically confused, asking what she said. Something shifts in her bearing, though she preserves the frightened appearance. Her spine straightens incrementally. Her respiration transitions from shallow panic to deep, regulated inhalations. The transformation is subtle enough that cameras miss it, but instinctive enough that Bryce's predatory senses begin transmitting warnings he's too arrogant to acknowledge. She murmurs, it was nothing significant. But her left hand has relocated to rest against the table edge in what seems a nervous gesture. Anyone with combat education would identify it as a leverage stance. Bryce leans forward, invading her space with intentional malevolence, declaring he believes she requires instruction and respect, and fortunately, he's an outstanding instructor. His hand moves toward her notebook, and Sloane's eyes follow the motion with concentrated attention, not the scattered focus of someone afraid, but the intensive observation of someone performing tactical computations. She measures the distance between his reaching hand and her positioned water container, the force necessary to destabilize him, the seconds Jackson would need to respond if she suddenly acted. Her request that he not touch her belongings emerges with something new in her voice. Not pleading, but cautioning. Bryce's fingers grasp her notebook, raising it from the table with exaggerated slowness, explaining that when she disrespects him, she forfeits the privilege to make requests. The initial page tears with a sound resembling breaking bones. Advanced chemistry calculations scatter across the floor like fallen foliage. Months of meticulous work destroyed in moments. The audience murmurs approval, feeding on the cruelty like spectators at a gladiatorial contest. But Sloane doesn't weep or beg. Instead, she tilts her head slightly, examining Bryce with the clinical detachment of a scientist observing an intriguing specimen. Her fingers tap once against the table edge, not nervously, but in a particular sequence that might be Morse code if anyone paid attention. Bryce's sarcastic apology about her needing to work late tonight, redoing everything, unless she wants to apologize appropriately and accept his study assistance, carries implications that hang in the atmosphere like toxic gas. Around them, the crowd shifts uncomfortably, finally beginning to detect they might be observing something darker than typical adolescent drama. But not one individual moves to intervene. Not one voice rises in objection. The bystander effect in full devastating exhibition. Camden zooms toward Sloane's face, hoping to capture tears for his audience. Instead, he discovers something that makes him take an involuntary backward step. Her green eyes have become completely frigid, emptied of fear and filled with something that makes his hands tremble around his phone. Bryce reaches for her laptop next, the expensive device her parents saved months to purchase. His suggestion that it needs an accident too, to really emphasize the lesson, comes as his hand hovers over the screen. For the first time, Sloane's carefully constructed facade begins to slip, not toward fear, but toward something far more dangerous. Her breathing intensifies, her shoulders square. The tremor leaves her hands entirely, replaced by the steady stillness of someone preparing to attack. Her command to put it down emerges with crystalline clarity, each word carrying more authority than any 17-year-old should possess. The instruction cuts through the cafeteria's atmosphere like a gunshot. Even Bryce hesitates, some primitive part of his consciousness recognizing the shift in her tone. But his pride, his audience, his carefully built reputation won't permit retreat. Instead, he elevates the laptop higher, challenging what she'll do. Sloane rises slowly, her movements fluid and controlled. As she stands, her cardigan falls open slightly, revealing what appears to be a thin mark along her collarbone. the type left by tactical training exercises rather than accidental injury. Her stance widens to shoulder width, weight distributed evenly on both feet. The change is so subtle that most observers miss it entirely, but anyone with military education would recognize the position immediately. Her final warning emerges quietly. Bryce's laughter reverberates across the suddenly silent cafeteria, mocking her tough act and questioning what she'll do. File a complaint with the principal? He announces his father donated the new gymnasium, declaring himself untouchable in this school. He raises the laptop above his head like a trophy, preparing to slam it down with enough force to shatter both screen and aspirations. The audience holds its breath. Camden's viewer count reaches triple digits. Maya covers her eyes, unable to watch another person get destroyed by the same monster that nearly broke her. In that frozen moment, with $1,000 of technology poised to become expensive wreckage, Sloane Rivera makes a choice that will change everything. Her left hand shoots out with surgical precision, fingers locating the pressure point just below Bryce's wrist. The laptop tumbles from suddenly unresponsive fingers as neural pathways temporarily shut down, the expensive machine landing safely in Sloane's right hand before anyone can blink. But she's not finished. Her foot hooks around her heavy wooden chair's leg, sending it sliding directly into Jackson's shins as he lunges forward. The 6'4" tower of muscle collapses hard, his phone clattering across the floor as he impacts the ground with a sound like a falling tree. Camden, still filming, finds his device suddenly airborne, as Sloane's precisely thrown pencil strikes his phone hand with enough force to send the smartphone spinning end over end before it shatters against the far wall. His livestream cuts off mid-sentence, leaving 67 viewers staring at a black screen. The entire sequence consumes less than 4 seconds. Bryce staggers backward, clutching his temporarily paralyzed hand against his chest, his face pale with shock and something he's never experienced before: genuine fear. His confused exclamation prompts Sloane's command to sit down, her voice carrying the unmistakable ring of command authority, not the request of a victim, but the order of someone accustomed to being obeyed. The laptop rests securely in her grip, her posture now radiating controlled danger like heat from a forge. The cafeteria has gone completely silent. 60 students who moments ago were eager spectators to cruelty now find themselves witnesses to something they can't quite comprehend. The small, frightened transfer student has vanished, replaced by someone who moves with the deadly grace of a trained operative. Jackson groans on the floor, attempting to push himself upright on shaking arms. Camden clutches his stinging hand, staring at the shattered remains of his phone with growing horror as he realizes his audience saw everything before the feed cut out. And Bryce Kingston, the untouchable king of Westfield High, discovers what it feels like to be prey. A question posed to the audience about her real story invites theories in the comments, with a feeling expressed that what comes next will be shocking. The silence stretches like a taut wire, ready to snap at the slightest provocation. In the space where cruelty lived just moments before, something new has taken root. Not fear exactly, but recognition. The understanding that they've all just witnessed power changing hands in the most fundamental way possible. In the corner of the cafeteria, Maya Chen retrieves her own phone and begins to record. Because sometimes the most important stories are the ones that almost no one gets to tell. Sloane sets her laptop down with deliberate care, never taking her eyes off Bryce. The gesture appears gentle, almost casual, but anyone who spent time around explosives would recognize the way she handles potential collateral damage. Everything precious gets secured before the real destruction begins. Her observation that he broke her homework emerges conversationally, despite the electricity crackling through the air, noting months of work and questioning whether he knows how long it takes to recreate organic chemistry research from memory. Bryce's hand has regained some sensation, fingers flexing as feeling returns. His face cycles through emotions like a slot machine: shock, confusion, rage, and something that might be calculation. The crowd around them seems to lean in collectively, sensing that whatever just happened was merely the opening act. His voice cracks slightly when he questions whether she thinks her kung fu movie nonsense will save her, adolescent uncertainty bleeding through practiced bravado. Jackson finally manages to get his knees under him, though his legs shake like a newborn colt's. There's genuine bewilderment in his eyes. No one has ever put him on the ground before, let alone someone who barely reaches his shoulder. Camden clutches his injured hand against his chest, staring at the remains of his phone with the expression of someone watching their lifeline dissolve. Sloane's correction emerges as she collects the scattered pages of her torn homework with methodical precision. Explaining it was pressure point manipulation combined with leverage physics, but noting she can see how he might confuse tactical training with entertainment media. The words land like individual slaps. Bryce's face darkens to a dangerous shade of crimson, the kind of color that precedes violence in young men who've never learned to process humiliation. Around them, whispers begin to ripple through the crowd like wildfire spreading through dry grass, questioning whether she just said tactical training, wondering who talks like that, observing how she's moving now in ways that aren't normal. Maya's phone captures every nuance, her hands steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. She's learned to recognize the moments before storms break, and the atmospheric pressure in the cafeteria has dropped to dangerous levels. Bryce takes a step forward, then catches himself as Sloane's posture shifts infinitesimally, not backward in retreat, but settling deeper into her stance like roots growing into soil. The message is clear. He can advance if he chooses, but the consequences will be immediate and decisive. His declaration that she'll regret this drops to the register he uses in locker rooms when planning particularly creative forms of revenge, questioning whether she has any idea what he can do to her life in this school, what he can do to her reputation. Her invitation to enlighten her sounds genuinely curious, as if she's conducting an interview rather than facing down 3 attackers in front of a live audience. His smile returns, but it's a different creature now, sharper, hungrier, touched with the kind of malice that turns teenage cruelty into something approaching evil. His command for Camden to pick up the broken phone carries enough venom to move mountains, let alone terrified 17-year-olds. Camden hesitates, clearly unwilling to move closer to whatever Sloane has become, suggesting they should leave. But Bryce's repeated command carries enough venom to compel obedience. With obvious reluctance, Camden approaches his shattered device. The screen flickers occasionally, showing fragments of his disrupted live stream, dozens of comments flooding in from viewers demanding to know what happened, where the feed went, why everything cut out at the most crucial moment. Bryce's announcement carries enough volume to reach every corner of the cafeteria, noting they have footage of their new friend assaulting 3 students unprovoked, suggesting self-defense will be difficult to sell when she threw the first punch. The accusation hangs in the air like toxic smoke. Sloane continues collecting her homework, but her movements have acquired a different quality, less hurried, more purposeful, like someone tidying up before a hurricane hits. Her murmur about an interesting interpretation expresses wonder about how that narrative holds up under frame-by-frame analysis. His question about what that's supposed to mean goes unanswered as Sloane stands and walks toward the nearest table, where 2 freshman girls sit frozen with terror. They scramble away as she approaches, leaving behind their partially eaten lunches and a small arsenal of school supplies. Her polite request to borrow a pen, promising to return it momentarily, precedes her examination of the writing instrument with the attention of someone choosing a surgical tool, testing its weight and balance with small movements that somehow make the innocent writing implement look deadly. Bryce's confidence wavers. There's something deeply unsettling about watching someone evaluate a 10-cent pen like it's a precision weapon. His question about what she's doing receives a simple answer. Solving a problem. She returns to her original position, the pen held loosely at her side, noting that he's absolutely right about the footage. Taken out of context, her actions could certainly appear aggressive. She pauses, letting the admission sink in around them. The crowd shifts restlessly, sensing they're being maneuvered into position for something they don't understand. Her continuation emphasizes that context is everything. Jackson finally regains his footing, though he stays well outside what he's apparently decided is Sloane's striking distance. His eyes keep darting between her face and her hands, as if trying to predict where the next attack will come from. Bryce's voice rises, playing to his audience with practiced skill, demanding context and providing his version. Some psycho-transfer student attacked 3 honor students because she couldn't handle a simple conversation, suggesting it sounds like a disciplinary hearing, like expulsion. Sloane tilts her head, considering this, expressing wonder about what the school board might think of his teaching methods. She begins moving again, but not toward any of them. Instead, she circles the perimeter of their makeshift arena. her path seemingly random until a pattern emerges. She's positioning herself so that every student with a phone has an unobstructed view, ensuring maximum documentation of whatever comes next. Her continued observation about bullies carries clearly through the space without being raised, noting they always assume they're the apex predators in their environment, never considering the possibility that something higher up the food chain might be watching. Camden makes a small choking sound. His broken phone screen flickers one final time before going completely black, taking with it the last digital witness to the opening moments of their encounter. Bryce's breathless declaration that she's insane receives a simple response of perhaps, but she adds a question. If she is, what does that make him? The person who chose to corner someone he believes to be mentally unstable in a public space with dozens of witnesses. The logic hits like a physical blow. Bryce's mouth opens and closes soundlessly as he processes the implications. His dismissal that this is ridiculous, that she's just some scared little girl trying to sound tough, precedes his command for Jackson to grab her. Jackson doesn't move, his eyes remaining fixed on the pen in Sloane's hand, and there's something in his expression that suggests he's having second thoughts about his life choices. Sloane's conversational mention that Jackson was hospitalized 3 years ago after what newspapers called a hazing incident, 17 stitches across his ribs, concussion severe enough to require a week of observation. Notes the official story was that he fell downstairs during a party. She pauses, letting this sink in, adding that emergency room staff are trained to recognize certain types of injuries, pattern wounds, defensive marks, the kind that don't match accidental falls. Jackson's face goes white. Around them, phones emerge from pockets like flowers blooming in time-lapse, their owners suddenly understanding that they might be witnessing something far more significant than typical high school drama. Her continuation questions who has access to that kind of information, who can pull medical records and police reports and incident documentation that normal students would never see. Bryce takes an involuntary step backward, for the first time since entering the cafeteria, appearing genuinely uncertain, asking what she's talking about. Her response about due diligence, research, the kind of background, investigation someone might conduct before accepting a new assignment. The pen spins once around her fingers before, settling back into her grip, makes the word assignment echo through the space like a stone dropped into still water. Students exchange glances, their expressions shifting from entertainment-seeking to genuine concern. This isn't sounding like typical teenage posturing anymore. Camden finds his voice first, questioning what kind of assignment. Sloane's smile is small and completely without warmth as she describes the kind that requires very specific qualifications, that comes with federal oversight and performance metrics. That, her words cut off as Bryce lunges forward, desperation overriding strategy, whatever game she's playing, whatever psychological warfare she's conducting. He's decided to end it with the direct approach that's never failed him before. Overwhelming physical force applied without warning or mercy. His hands reach for her shoulders, intending to slam her backward into the wall hard enough to knock the fight out of her. It's a move he's perfected through years of practice, refined through dozens of encounters with students who thought they could challenge his authority. But Sloane isn't there. She moves like water, flowing around an obstacle, her body shifting just enough to let his momentum carry him past her. The pen in her hand flicks out with surgical precision, not to injure, but to redirect. The point finds the nerve cluster just above his elbow, and his left arm goes suddenly. Completely numb, off balance, overextended, and now partially paralyzed, Bryce staggers forward into the exact position Sloane has maneuvered him toward. His hip strikes the edge of her table with enough force to send her water bottle spinning across the surface, its contents arcing through the air in a perfect parabola that lands squarely on her laptop's keyboard. The MacBook screen flickers once and goes dark. The cafeteria falls into the kind of silence usually reserved for graveyards and libraries. 60 students watch in horrified fascination as $2,000 of electronics dies with a series of tiny electronic whimpers. Sloane stares at her destroyed laptop for exactly 3 seconds. When she looks up, something fundamental has changed in her expression. The careful control remains, but underneath it, something cold and implacable has awakened. Her quiet observation that that was a mistake precedes Bryce's attempt to salvage the situation through sheer audacity. his sarcastic suggestion that she should have been more careful where she put her stuff lacking its earlier confidence. There's something about the way she's looking at him now that makes primal survival instincts scream warnings he's too proud to heed. Sloane begins to walk toward him, her steps measured and deliberate, each footfall echoing through the silence like a countdown timer reaching 0. Students instinctively move aside, creating a clear path between predator and prey. Her conversational question about how many hours of work he just destroyed, how many research projects, scholarship applications, college essays were on that computer, backs Bryce up until he hits the wall. His earlier bravado evaporating under the weight of her attention, he stammers that it was an accident, that he'll buy her a new one. Her soft question about with what money, the allowance his father gives him. The same father who's about to discover that his donations to this school have been buying immunity for his son's criminal activities emerges sharp as a blade. She's close enough now that he can see the green flecks in her eyes, can smell the faint scent of something like gunpowder that clings to her clothes, close enough to see the thin white scars along her knuckles that speak of serious training, serious combat, serious consequences for those who underestimated her whispered question about whether he wants to know what she is, pitched, to carry just far enough to reach the cameras now, recording from every angle, provides an answer. She's what happens when the system decides it's tired of watching children destroy each other while adults look the other way. Bryce's breath comes in short, panicked gasps, his eyes darting left and right, seeking escape routes, finding none. The crowd has formed a perfect circle around them, every exit blocked by phone-wielding witnesses, hungry for the climax they sense approaching. Her continuation that she's what happens when someone finally says enough precedes her reaching out with deliberate slowness, her fingers closing around the edge of the heavy wooden table beside them, the same table where she'd been sitting peacefully just minutes ago trying to do homework and mind her own business, the same table where 3 boys had decided to teach her about respect and consequences and the natural order of things. Bryce's eyes widen as he realizes what she's planning. His plea to wait going unheeded as Sloane Rivera, trained operative, professional problem solver, and very much not the helpless victim they'd assumed her to be, has already committed to her course of action. The table flips with devastating precision. 40 pounds of solid oak catching Bryce squarely in the chest and driving him backward into the wall with a sound like thunder breaking over mountains. And in the sudden absolute silence that follows, as Bryce Kingston slides down the wall with his Letterman jacket torn and his dignity shattered and his reign of terror finally, definitively ended, Sloane turns to face the crowd of witnesses with the calm satisfaction of someone whose work here is done, almost. The silence stretches like a held breath, broken only by Bryce's labored gasping and the soft electronic chimes of notifications flooding social media feeds across the school. Videos of the encounter are already spreading beyond Westfield High's digital borders, carrying the story to audiences who will never know the names involved, but will remember the moment a victim became a force of nature. Sloane straightens her cardigan with movements that seem almost casual, but her eyes never stop scanning the crowd, cataloging faces, identifying potential threats, calculating exit strategies with the automatic precision of someone for whom situational awareness isn't a skill, but a survival requirement. Her phone buzzes against her hip once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. The pattern means something specific, something that makes her expression shift from satisfaction to alertness. She doesn't reach for the device immediately. Too many eyes are watching. Too many cameras are recording. But the subtle change in her posture suggests that whatever message awaits her attention, it's been expected. Maya Chen lowers her phone, her recording complete. Around the cafeteria, other students begin to do the same, sensing that they've captured something significant, something that will be analyzed frame by frame, shared and reshared, discussed in classrooms and living rooms and corporate boardrooms where decisions about school policy and federal funding get made. But none of them understand what they've really witnessed. None of them realize that Bryce Kingston's public destruction was never about revenge or self-defense or teenage drama. It was about documentation, evidence, building a case that will hold up in courts both legal and academic. Sloane's phone buzzes again, a longer pattern this time, more urgent. She allows herself one last look around the cafeteria, memorizing details for the report she'll need to file later. The shocked faces, the scattered homework, the overturned table, the broken phone, and most importantly, the dozens of digital recordings that will serve as unimpeachable evidence of what happens when systemic bullying finally meets systematic response. Then she picks up her backpack, steps carefully over Jackson's prone form, and walks toward the exit with the measured gait of someone who has places to be and people to contact. Behind her, Bryce Kingston struggles to his feet, his face a mask of humiliation and growing rage. His voice, when it finally emerges, carries the promise of retaliation that will make their previous encounter look like a gentle conversation, declaring this isn't over, that she has no idea who she's messing with, no idea what he's capable of. Sloane pauses at the cafeteria's threshold, her hand resting lightly on the metal door frame. For a moment, it seems like she might turn around, might offer some final word or gesture to seal their confrontation. Instead, she pulls out her phone and checks the message that's been waiting for her attention. Her lips curve into a smile that contains absolutely no warmth. Her murmur to herself about Phase 1 being complete, time for Phase 2, goes unheard by others. And as she disappears into the hallway beyond, leaving chaos and questions in her wake, the students of Westfield High begin to understand that they've just witnessed something far more significant than a simple cafeteria fight. They've witnessed the opening move in a much larger game. A game where the rules are about to change completely. A game where someone has finally decided that the hunters are about to become the hunted. The hallway beyond the cafeteria stretches empty in both directions, but Sloane doesn't head toward her next class. Instead, she moves with purpose toward the administrative wing. Her phone pressed against her ear as a call connects on the first ring. Her quiet report using gaming-like terminology. Blackbird to base. Package delivered. Documentation complete. Receives a response carrying the crisp authority of someone accustomed to operational briefings, acknowledging and requesting status on secondary objectives. Her update about multiple witnesses. Full digital capture. Target neutralized with minimal collateral. Pausing at the intersection of two hallways to check her surroundings with practiced efficiency. Noting Maya Chen performed exactly as predicted and has everything they need. Prompts an outstanding response and preparation. Instructions for Phase 2 initiation. Call ends just as the first wave of chaos erupts behind her. Shouts echo from the cafeteria as teachers and administrators rush toward the commotion, drawn by reports of violence and the unmistakable sound of teenagers in full gossip mode. But Sloane has already turned the corner, disappearing into the maze of lockers and classroom doors like smoke dissipating in wind. Back in the cafeteria, Maya Chen stares at her phone screen with trembling fingers. The video she recorded isn't just sitting in her camera roll anymore, somehow impossibly. It's already uploaded to every major social media platform with professional-grade editing and captions that read like legal documentation. Westfield High bullying exposed. 3 boys corner new student. Face immediate consequences. The view counts climb exponentially. 50,000 in the first 10 minutes. 100,000 by the time Principal Martinez arrives on scene. The comments section fills with reactions ranging from horror at the initial bullying to cheering approval of Sloane's defensive actions. But Maya notices something else. Details in the video that she doesn't remember capturing. Camera angles that shift impossibly. Catching perspectives her single phone couldn't have recorded. Audio quality that's been enhanced to capture every threatening word from Bryce's mouth with crystal clarity. Someone else was recording. Someone with professional equipment and real-time editing capabilities. Principal. Martinez surveys the wreckage with the expression of a man watching his career evaporate in real time. Bryce sits against the wall, his Letterman jacket torn and his face pale with shock and growing rage. Jackson remains on the floor, though he's managed to prop himself up against a nearby chair. Camden clutches the remains of his phone, staring at the shattered screen like it might spontaneously regenerate. Martinez's single-word command to explain receives Bryce's indignant claim that she attacked them, that the psycho-transfer student just went crazy for no reason. But even as he speaks, students around the cafeteria are holding up their phones, showing him exactly how his version of events looks when played back in high definition. The intimidation, the torn homework, the deliberate destruction of property, the coordinated harassment by 3 boys against 1 isolated girl. Martinez's phone buzzes with an incoming call, then another, then a cascade of notifications that make his face go progressively paler as he reads the caller IDs. School board president, district superintendent, local news stations, and most ominously, a number he recognizes as belonging to the State Education Compliance Office. His careful instruction for Mr. Kingston to call his parents now sets events in motion. 20 minutes later, the cafeteria has been cleared of students, but not of consequences. The videos have spread beyond Westfield High's boundaries, picked up by news aggregators and social justice accounts with millions of followers. The hashtag trends nationally, accompanied by forensic breakdowns of the footage that identify every violation of school policy, state law, and basic human decency captured in high definition. Bryce's father, Harrison Kingston, arrives with his usual swagger but finds himself facing something unprecedented. Not just an angry principal or concerned parent, but reporters in the parking lot, district officials in the conference room, and a digital paper trail that no amount of money can make disappear. His declaration that this is ridiculous, that boys will be boys, that this is typical teenage drama blown completely out of proportion, falls flat. But Principal Martinez has spent the last hour fielding calls from 12 different families, 12 sets of parents whose children have been documenting Bryce's reign of terror for years, waiting for someone brave enough to make the first move. Maya's courage in recording and sharing the video has opened floodgates that no donation can close. The evidence is overwhelming. Text message screenshots showing coordinated harassment campaigns, hospital records from accidents that follow suspicious patterns, transfer requests from students whose families couldn't afford to move but felt they had no choice. Harrison Kingston's face goes through several color changes as the scope of his son's activities becomes clear. His weakening voice suggesting there has to be something they can do. Some kind of arrangement receives Martinez's firm response, sliding a formal suspension notice across the table, explaining the school board has voted for immediate permanent removal. The district attorney's office is reviewing the case for potential charges, and the state education department is launching a full investigation into their anti-bullying policies. Outside, Sloan Rivera sits in her car in the student parking lot, watching the circus unfold through her rearview mirror. Her phone rings again, displaying a number that doesn't exist in any public directory. Her report that Phase 2 is complete ahead of schedule, systemic change initiated, collateral objectives exceeded expectations, receives congratulations and notification that her next assignment is ready for briefing. The suggestion of Kingston Academy receives a negative response. Priority has shifted to Morrison High, where they've had 3 attempted suicides in the past month, requiring immediate intervention. Sloan starts her engine, a nondescript sedan that could belong to any suburban parent, asking about the timeline for deployment. The response of Monday morning. With her cover identity already established as Emma Sarah Mitchell, transfer student from Colorado with parents in military deployment rotation, prompts her smile. The legend builders always gave her military family backgrounds. It made the skills easier to explain if questions arose. Her acknowledgement and question about the target profile receives information about twin brothers, Dakota and Austin Reynolds, football team members with family connections to local law enforcement. Similar pattern to Kingston, with systemic protection enabling escalating behavior. Sloan pulls out of the parking lot, leaving behind the chaos she's orchestrated with surgical precision. In her rearview mirror, news vans are arriving. Reporters setting up for live broadcasts that will carry the story of Westfield High's reckoning to audiences across the country. Her phone buzzes with a text message from Maya Chen expressing thanks, acknowledging she doesn't know who Sloan really is, but expressing gratitude. She doesn't respond, can't respond. The mission parameters are clear. Minimal personal attachment, maximum systematic impact, clean extraction once objectives are achieved. But as she drives away from Westfield High for the last time, Sloan allows herself a moment of satisfaction. 47 schools on the priority list when she started, 46 remaining after today's success. The phone rings one final time as she merges onto the interstate. This call doesn't require code names or operational security. The voice on the other end belongs to someone she's never met but whose work she's come to respect immensely, asking how it feels to be the solution instead of the problem. Sloan considers the question as miles pass beneath her tires, carrying her toward the next battlefield in a war most people don't even realize is being fought. Her eventual answer compares it to hunting season just opening, with the predators having become the prey. Behind her, Westfield High continues its transformation. Students who've lived in fear for years are finding their voices, Teachers who turned blind eyes are facing accountability. Administrators who enabled abuse through willful ignorance are learning that some consequences can't be bought off or explained away. And in schools across 46 districts, bullies who thought themselves untouchable are about to discover that someone very dangerous has marked them for elimination. They thought they were hunting lambs in a world without shepherds. They never suspected they were being hunted by wolves in sheep's clothing. The revolution has begun, and its agents wear cardigans and carry textbooks and blend invisibly into crowds of teenagers who have no idea they're witnessing the future of justice. In boardrooms across Washington, data analysts compile statistics that tell a different story than public education reports. Suicide rates among high school students have dropped 11% in districts where transfer students have recently enrolled. Bullying incidents resulting in hospitalization have decreased by 37%. College enrollment from previously troubled schools has increased exponentially as students rediscover their potential in environments suddenly free from systematic terror. The program doesn't exist in any official capacity, no congressional funding, no departmental oversight, no paper trail leading back to decision-makers who understood that sometimes the system requires off-the-book solutions to problems that traditional authority structures have proven incapable of addressing. But in a nondescript office building in Virginia, a wall-mounted map displays 47 red pins marking schools in crisis. Today, one pin changes color from red to green. Tomorrow, Agent Rivera will begin surveillance on target number 46. Next week, 3 more operatives will deploy to districts where local leadership has failed and federal intervention remains politically impossible. The teenagers, destroying their classmates' lives with impunity, have no idea they're about to face opponents trained by professionals who've spent decades perfecting the art of systematic elimination of threats to innocent people.